Hey, you made it to week 4, lesson 2. Congratulations. Check it out. It's like floral pattern. Kind of looks like this paisley shirt. Alright, let's do it. Parallel structures and repetition. Let's go ahead and start it. Let's go and start first at parallel structure. It's using the same pattern of words to show two or more ideas that have the same level of importance. So really, when you're looking at the structure, it's looking at how to use commas in a succinct and proper manner. And if you're using this in poetry, it's used as a literary device. Parallelism draws on the idea of connection and similarity. So first we're going to look at just normal writing in terms of grammatical parallel structure. Then we will look at parallelism later that can be used in poetry. And it can be used in other places, but you'll see it most frequently in poetry. So in terms of parallel structure, you're going to use the coordinating conjunctions such as and, or. And these are words and phrases, and you can often use the ing form or gerund of words. So let's use an example. He likes hiking, swimming, and bicycling. So if you look at the flow, it's concise, it's to the point. Mary likes hiking. Mary likes hiking, swimming, and bicycling. And if you're using, and you can also use it with infinitive phrases, which means that they are always doing it. So, Mary likes to hike, to swim, and to ride a bicycle. Or you can just have it be Mary likes to hike, swim, and ride a bicycle. And when you're looking at this, you can use to before all the verbs, as or just use it for the first one, before the first one. That's just a way to build parallel structure. Just make sure that you're not mixing forms. So, example that would not be parallel. Mary likes hiking, swimming, and to ride a bicycle. See how it seems like it's a little bit herky-jerky? So it doesn't have the same flow. It should be more concise, which is Mary likes hiking, swimming, and riding a bicycle. Another example, the production manager was asked to write his report quickly, accurately, and in a detailed manner. Not parallel. Because you're using detailed instead of quickly, accurately, and there's no detailedly, so we have to change it. And to make it parallel, it would be the production manager was asked to write his report quickly, accurately, and thoroughly. That is your example. So just make sure that you're keeping the form in parallel structure. And I have a website linked here for more examples. But let's use another one. Let's go ahead and start. So not parallel. The teacher said that he was a poor student because he had waited until the last minute to study for the exam, complete his lab problems in a careless manner, and his motivation was low. So this structure is not as concise, and it doesn't have the proper flow that it should. So to make it parallel, you would change it so that you would have it say, the teacher said that he was a poor student because he waited until the last minute to study for the exam, completed his lab problems in a careless manner, and lacked motivation. So again, you're just keeping it in the same form all the time. And if you're using clauses in parallel structure, they need to be kept on with clauses. Changing to another pattern or changing the voice of the verb from active to passive or vice versa will break the parallelism. So when we're looking at clauses, we're going to look at some examples now. Here's our Santa Claus. But this guy looks like the dude, the Boiler Man from Spirited Away. Haven't seen it? Don't worry, you've seen it now. Look at that guy. That guy does not look human. But I digress. Let's look at our clause parallel structure example number 1. It would not be parallel if I said, the coach told the players that they should get a lot of sleep, and they should not eat too much, and to do some warm-up exercises before the game. To make it parallel, it should be, the coach told the players that they should get a lot of sleep, that they should not eat too much, and that they should do some warm-up exercises before the game. So if you look, I said should. Helps build the structure. And to make it even more concise and also still parallel, the coach told the players that they should get a lot of sleep, not eat too much, and do some warm-up exercises before the game. So I use should either every time for every clause, or just use it once before the first parallel structure, and it also works in parallel fashion. If you read it out loud, it's the best way to recognize if it's parallel or not parallel. Let's use another example for clause. Maybe you're looking at a salesman buying a card. So, if it's not parallel, it would be the salesman expected that he would present his product at the meeting, that there would be time for him to show his slide presentation, and that questions would be asked by prospective buyers. That's passive because it's past tense, asked. To make it parallel, you make it say, the salesman expected that he would present his product at the meeting, that there would be time for him to show his slide presentation, and that prospective buyers would ask him questions. So everything is in the same tense. That's to make sure that it stays parallel. And then if you're looking at a colon, when we make lists after colon, it should be in the same format too to keep it parallel. So, an example that's not parallel, the dictionary can be used to find word meanings, pronunciations, correct spellings, and looking up irregular verbs. So you could say, to make it parallel rather, the dictionary can be used to find word meanings, pronunciations, correct spellings, and irregular verbs. So if you look at the last phrase there, and looking up irregular verbs, you just change it to have it say and irregular verbs. Just keep it in the parallel structure. Let's look at some practice here. So here's the two options here. This will be similar to what your quiz potentially could be. So to apply this job, you need, so is it this? To apply this job, you need to have a university degree in linguistics and 5-year experience as an interpreter. Or would it sound better if you said, to apply this job, you need to have a university degree in linguistics and having 5-year experience as an interpreter? It's the first one, because I'm not having, in the second part, I say to have, and then I also have having after and. So you're saying to have a university degree in linguistics and 5-year experience as an interpreter. Has a better, more concise flow, which makes it parallel. Let's look at another one. She decided to forget about her ex-boyfriend, start a new relationship, and to work hard on her project. Or is it she decided to forget about her ex-boyfriend, start a new relationship, and work hard on her project? So number one again, forget about her ex-boyfriend, start a new relationship, and to work hard on her project. Or forget about her ex-boyfriend, start a new relationship, and work hard on her project. It's the second one, because I don't have to work hard. Because it would have to be to forget about her ex-boyfriend, to start a new relationship, and to work hard if that was going to be parallel. However, the second one has a better fluency and flow to it. More practice on the link below. If you click on this in the slideshow, that'll give you more practice for parallel structure. I highly encourage you to keep on looking at that. But now let's look at repetition and parallelism in poetry. So parallelism is just a repeating structure in poetry, and we often look at this as repetition, which, if you don't know repetition, it's just repeating as a stylistic choice. So when we look at parallelism, it's a structured use of repetition by using identical or equivalent constructions in corresponding clauses to express the same sentiment. So we're using the same structure, similar, but they're never, interchanging, and that's why I have train tracks there. So there are multiple types. We have literal repetition, which is repeating the same exact thing over and over throughout. That's usually the most common and easiest way to see it. There is grammatical repetition, which is using the same structure throughout, which we call parallel structure or parallel construction. And then there's also the literal and grammatical repetition, which is using both. But let's look at an example. So here's the example here, Still I Rise. I highlighted words that we see repeated throughout the poem. So let's first look at the purple. Still I rise. Still I rise, I'll rise. Still I'll rise, I'll rise. I rise, I rise, I rise, I rise, I rise, I rise, I rise. Are those repeating? I hope so. And then let's look at the second type of repetition, you may. And we don't see it throughout the whole poem, but we do see it in sections. So in the first stanza, we have it, you may, you may. And then when you look at line 21, it starts again with more repetition for 3 lines. We have but still, and I found that twice. And then we also have just like, which is seen in 1 stanza. And then does my is seen in 3. And again, the question for you is, why does this repetition help build the tone of the poem? That's something for you to look at for the assignments this week. Let's do another one. And this is your 5th poem, Good Bones. Life is short, life is short, life is short. And it's a similar structure. They word it a little bit differently, but 1,000 delicious ill-advised ways and 1,000 deliciously ill-advised ways. We see world is at least 50% terrible, and the world is at least half terrible. For every is repeated, beautiful. And then I'll keep from my children. And this is Good Bones by Maggie Smith. Just some ideas of repetition. You will need to see and recognize that for our story, and also see how the intent or the tone is built from using these literary devices like parallel structure and repetition and diction and word choice as well. And then finally, here's a slideshow to help you with your MLA formatting. This week, it's different than week 2 and week 3. This week, when you're using citing poems, you have to use a comma and mention lines. So you have the signal phrase, this is seen when the author states, comma, quotation marks, your poem, and then in the parentheses, you use the last name of the author. So let's say Angelo, comma, lines 12 to 17. And that's where you're going to have it. It's a little bit different. So we do have a comma, and now we also mention line numbers versus page numbers. That's our breakdown. Make sure you look at this when you're writing your responses for both week 4 part lesson 1 and week 4 lesson 2. Have any questions? Please feel free to contact me. Good luck.